Parenting's hard, you don't know what to do. You're blaming your kids, but it's probably you. You love your kids and that you can trust. Just remember your kids don't suck.
Welcome to Your Kids Don't Suck, cultivating closeness with your children through non-coercive conscious parenting. We're your hosts, Cara, Tedstone, and Rythea Lee. Let's dive in and grow together.
Welcome to Your Kids Don't Suck. And Cara and I are jumping out of our skin with joy and excitement to be here because this is a brand new podcast that really came to us and it's just flowed and it's been so easy. And we are here to support parents who want to do something different, who sense that there is a different way to parent their child than the norm, than the societal agreement that we just need to control our kids and make them behave better and work so hard rather than work in collaboration with our beautiful, smart, and brilliant children. We have stories to tell you, we have thoughts and ideas, and we are really falling in love. Cara and I are like friends who are falling in love through this focus. Cara found me through TikTok and she said, I have this vision, what do you think? And it was exactly where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And so since then, we are like on the phone all the time talking about non-coercive parenting, conscious parenting, gentle parenting. And basically we sound like a podcast. Like if you listen to our calls and our messages to each other, like we are so in the material. We are a walking, breathing podcast. So now we're including you. We're making it official. Buckle up, get your questions ready, and we hope to answer them over the long haul. We're going to make a bunch of podcasts, but this summer, hopefully we'll make 3 and we'll launch and we'll all learn together.
Thank you, Rythea. I so agree. It's so funny. It's so serendipitous how all this happened, and us living in the parenting that we do. Like when we're talking back and forth, it's always, wow, we need to put this on the show. We have so many episodes, and I think that is so true for us, that we are just a walking podcast, living in the parenting, talking about the parenting, sharing our experiences. It's been so great.
Do you want to say how you found me or like how you came to contact me?
Yeah, okay, sure. I'll talk a little bit about that. Well, obviously TikTok is sending you videos all the time, right? Of what it thinks you're into. And always mine is parenting. It's just me watching parenting videos all the time. I have a 1-year-old, which I'll do a little intro to myself in a bit, but I've got my 1-year-old. I'm always thinking about how I want to show up as a mom. That's been living in my heart for before much longer than being a parent myself. My whole life I want to show up for kids. So TikTok knows this. Somehow it knows, and it sends me, your profile, Rythea, months ago. I don't know when you kind of blew up on TikTok, but I started seeing your videos. Gosh, it was wintertime because it was so cold, and I'm on TikTok more in the winter, and you started showing up for me probably in December around then. And I just fell in love with your content because you were speaking about non-coercion in a way that I have never actually heard. Like before I found you, I didn't know what non-coercion was. I didn't know it was a thing. I was thinking about how parents kind of tend to treat their kids like shit a lot of the time, noticing this and me not wanting to do that. Somehow TikTok found out that you were speaking to in your content exactly the type of way that I want to parent and I'm striving to parent. And you had all this language. And I was like, oh my God, she's doing what I'm trying to do and she's sharing it for free. And obviously in my work, I'm a therapist working with clients, young and older. And you were sharing all of the type of work that I do with my clients just out here on TikTok. So it was a beautiful platform that I felt was like, it spoke to me, it reached me, through the algorithm. And then I just had to reach out to you personally. I had to connect with you to see, okay, you're doing exactly what I'm thinking I am trying to do, striving to do. I want to learn more about with you. I want to talk about how we do this work with our clients too. How can we maybe reach other parents who are wondering about how they can do this as well? And this approach that feels very, to me, inaccessible and not articulated in the gentle parenting space. But you were really the person that I found out about this world through. So that's why I reached out, because I was like, well, I have to talk to her and I have to find a way to work with her. And then when we met, like you said, we decided, well, let's talk about it together and do a podcast.
Well, Carrie, you are naturally doing non-coercive parenting, which is amazing to me. And it makes me wonder if there are lots and lots of parents who are doing it differently in their quiet little homes, just like not following the rules,
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, because, what happened on TikTok that was so shocking is I was feeling like I was alone and weird and different and people were judging me all the time. And then when I started making videos about it, hundreds and hundreds of people have come out of the woodwork saying, I agree with this. This is what I want to change. I'm so drawn to this. Thank you so much. You're naming something I'm already doing. Or I never heard of this. I feel like this is what I've been waiting for. Just a whole community has arisen. Is that a word? Arisen. And that's been so healing for me. And so I feel like this is the next step. I feel like I prayed for the next step and you invited me into the next step.
It's so beautiful because it's like when I reached out to you, I thought like, we're working, in our own practices clinically. It's like, we don't have time. We're both parents. It's just the fact that we're able to sit down and actually just talk about, for me, this is like I've said before, it's like kind of like my life's purpose. It feels like is to really talk about connecting with kids, working collaboratively with folks, showing up as a better person, right? I think that's like something that I am so deeply connected to, this idea of, and then the fact that we're available to do this, to carve out time to talk, is hopefully it's going to speak to people. I hope we'll have some listeners. But ultimately, my goal for this is that people will like, it'll resonate with people, just in general, what we're talking about.
I think that brings us to our next thing, which is why we called it Your Kids Don't Suck. I think we should both try to articulate why we called it that.
Okay, so it's tongue in cheek, right? That's the point. Your Kids Don't Suck came to you, right, Rythea?
No, it was you.
Was it me?
I said parents suck. My parents suck. And you were like, how about your kids don't suck? And I was like, oh, that's so much better because I don't want to be judging parents so overtly. They're not going to want to be listening to this if they're like, oh, I'm already judged. Even though Your Kids Don't Suck kind of points to the parent being in deep judgment, which is very common and it afflicts so many parents that they are judging their children because the children are not acting, behaving, and becoming the person that they had in their mind.
Yes.
And that is tormenting for parents when they can't control their kids, which they can't. I mean, they try, they punish, they give consequences, they give rewards, they withhold love, they criticize, they nitpick, and you still cannot make your child be the person you have in your mind. So that's partly why it's called Your Kids Don't Suck, because guess what? It's not about your kids. It's about you.
Also, I think you said something about the judgment that parents often find themselves feeling around judging their kids. I wonder if it's not often. I wonder if it's unavoidable. I wonder if all parents feel that way at times, that we find ourselves judging our kids inadvertently, expecting them to align with the values that we have, and then therefore that manifests in judgment at times. For me personally, I just want to say, be honest, I felt that way about my 1-year-old. And my kid, my daughter, she's 14 months old, and sometimes I have. This is a place I think where we need to be vulnerable and share with people to hopefully cultivate a relatability, but I have judged my own daughter for being loud, or why she's so fussy, or shouldn't she be more calm, or she's hard to please. Like, I'm labeling her out of fear and out of lots of triggers, right? Feeling triggered myself and feeling pain and feeling confused and wanting things to be different or easier. I think that that's something that I wanted our name to reflect. Of course, on the surface, it is tongue in cheek. It's supposed to be attention grabby. What's this podcast all about? Underneath all of that, though, is this affirmation, I think, to us parents, that if we felt in that place of judgment, that place of wishing things to be different, that's okay. It's a gentle reminder that our kids don't suck, though. We might judge them and want them to be different at times. I think that's part of being a human. It's part of the struggle. And being the conscious part of non-coercion is being awake to that, is being aware of that. Hey, I'm noticing, that I'm thinking my kid should be easier, and I can catch that and I can reflect on why that is. And then I can do the work that is the non-coercive piece, the allowing her to be who she is. really the mindset that comes with this is the reflection, the constant commitment to growth, and to be that safe space for our kids is all part of the name.
Cara, you said that so well. Yes, it's a mindset. I love that. And for our listeners, we are both therapists. I've been a therapist for 28 years, and we're both going to tell you about our histories and what we're doing with our lives. But, so we are both in the paradigm all the time of working with people who are working on themselves. And that's so much what non-coercion conscious parenting is. It's about the parent committing to their own process, which is, as you know, whoever you are, it's the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah. It is. It's this brings us to non-coercion. Like, what is it, right? And just before I say that, I think that non-coercion is what the biggest question is of all of this, underneath the mindset of, okay, right, I'm with you. Yeah, I want to sort of respect my kid. I want to meet them where they're at. How do I do that? And then you're faced right off the bat, when I share this with people who aren't familiar with this term, non-coercion sounds really, really out there, I think. We want to share with you this definition, what it really is, to help folks get on the same page, I guess, with what it is that we actually end up doing, right? We want to show up with our mindset, of course, and to allow our kids to be who they are, but how? And I think that's what the non-coercion is.
Well, okay, so I'm going to read a definition of non-coercion that I wrote, that I'm happy with, I'm excited about. And I just want to say, I think it's out there, the word non-coercion is out there, is because there's universal denial that we are coercing the shit out of our children. There's so much universal agreement that we are allowed to make our children do whatever we want, and no one can tell us differently. That is the party line. Pretty much 99.9% of parents would agree with that. Like, yes, it's my kid. I can do what I want. And a lot of parents literally have no idea they're coercing their child. They really don't know. So that's what this whole thing is about. This podcast are going to be about, is bringing all of that to light so that you can look at it and look at it for yourself. Here's a definition of non-coercive parenting that I wrote. Non-coercive conscious parenting, what is it? The word non-coercion is a confrontational way of saying that we are stepping out of the collective agreement that children are less than equal to adults, and that we can make our kids do whatever we want them to do. Traditional parenting practices are built on using the inherent power of the parent to control, suppress, and force children to act and behave in certain ways through punishment, rewards, consequences, threats, manipulation, and other varying acts of harmful coercion. Non-coercion parenting speaks to what we don't want to do anymore. It's non-authoritarian. It's decolonized. It's breaking down domination behavior. Coming out of a power over mindset allows for a shift into conscious parenting, which is a relationship-focused dynamic with our children, where they are considered equal human beings, equal in value. Their opinions matter just as much as ours. Their wants and needs carry just as much weight, and they have emotional, physical, and mental autonomy. The emotional bond between parent and child becomes the priority over all other concerns. Collaboration becomes the base of how we relate and connect with our kids, and this is a whole field of study. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And how does collaborative parenting function? This question is the basis of what we will tackle on this podcast. I'm going to tell you a little bit about conscious parenting. Conscious parenting points to the parents having a conscious relationship with their parenting, their triggers, their history, memories, traumas, dismantling their belief systems, their patterns of self-hatred, and being willing to break the cycles of how we were raised. It's about parents developing a process for which they examine their own conditioning. Even though almost every culture will tell you that controlling your child is good parenting, it actually creates separation, pain, and lifelong power struggles. If you are drawn to non-coercive conscious parenting, you probably intuitively sense that there's a way to be close with your child, to create loving communication that has mutual respect. you probably sense that joy can be shared, trust, and play without the daily agony of using force on your child. There is a world of learning needed on the part of the parent to show up for our children's feelings, struggles, interests, learning styles, creativity, and essence, who they are. That is what this podcast is all about. So buckle up and let's grow.
It's just incredible the way that you're able to sum all that up. And I love too this last piece about like they're noticing that they want what's deeper to the traditional parenting agenda, which is we want to help our kids be functional. I'm doing air quotes, right? Like successful, functional, contributing members of society. I know Rythea and I, that's not where my interest lies at all. As conscious parents, we're looking for long-lasting closeness, to be a safe space for whoever the hell our kids are, because as you've mentioned so many times, we don't actually control them. And we welcome that. We really welcome this idea that our kids are individual human beings that are here to teach us and guide us and mentor us, actually, and not the other way around. And I'm really trying to cultivate a lifelong closeness with my child. And I think if you're on our show, that's what you're hoping for too. Not just to get them out. You know, you hear all the time, let's get them till we've only got to do this for 18 years or whatever. Absolutely not, right? We are lifelong seekers of closeness with the people that we've brought into this earth.
Well, and also it's not mutually exclusive. I actually believe the more attached you are with your child in a healthy way, the more they thrive, the easier they express themselves, the more they love themselves, the more loving they are to other people. I mean, it just happens naturally.
Yeah.
You know, when you focus on making your child a good citizen, I mean, that's so problematic in the system that we live in a capitalistic patriarchy. Yeah. And just to say, we are going, and we'll say this at the end, but we are going to also bring on guests who have other aspects of this work, pieces of this work that we don't have. And we'll say more about that at the end.
We want to share who we are because I think it's so important to acknowledge that, like, I'm a therapist and Rythea is a therapist. And this work that we do in our parenting on triggers, I think that for me has also been easily seen, I guess, as the foundation to how I want to raise my kid, because I'm exposed to this day in, day out with clients, right? Doing that work, helping people understand their connect to their inner children, to unpack their experiences, the messaging that they received as kids. That was one thing Rythea and I really connected to immediately to each other on a call, is of course, like, not only are we doing this work with our children, but with clients, helping them to understand how this impacts them. So that's just one thing I think that is worth mentioning, considering the information, you know, the psychoeducation, I think that sometimes is required. That's why Rythea calls this, it's an entire field of study, right?
Yes, it is. It takes years. It takes years. I mean, I'm in my 6th year. I'm in my 6th or 7th year of non-coercive parenting, and I am still learning all the time. Yeah. Oh my God, I have so much to say about. It's like undoing racism. It's like undoing sexism. I mean, this is undoing child oppression. It's just as deep. It's just as historic. There's so much information.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to find. It's hard to find the information because most people agree we should not give children autonomy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess to like start off with my bio, that's why this so speaks to me, because mental health, like in general, is sort of a new discovery for a lot of people, realizing that, their relationships impact how they navigate their triggers. People are only now learning this. And so like as a therapist, it's all so connected into why I'm so passionate about taking my parenting to this place. I've been working with kids and families. Well, I mean, honestly, I was saying to you, Rythea, that I was always kind of like a nurturer of children, I think, inherently, like intuitively. I used to babysit young kids. I was like always the person that like my friends and younger kids would kind of look to for. I was always like wanting to be a safe space for people who I felt like were maybe vulnerable or needed some guidance. And so I became a teacher, but now I'm a therapist. And I am a mom to a 1-year-old. And now I really practice collaborative, non-coercive parenting with my husband, but I tried really hard to do that sort of approach with students before I was even a therapist, and that was very difficult. So I also sort of want to acknowledge in my bio that it's like, I haven't always behaved this way, you know, in the context of things like schools or organizations that prevent people from seeing children in the way that I would want to see them and would ideally like to treat them, was very difficult in schools. And that's actually a big reason why I left education, because at the time I was thinking about being a school counselor and trying to support kids in the education system. I thought that's where I'd want to spend my time. But I very quickly realized that I couldn't actually practice collaboration, non-coercion in schools. It actually was impossible. I actually could lose my job for doing that. So it was not in alignment with what I wanted to share with parents and with young people. That kind of brings me to this place of now I'm a parent, and on the internet, right? I was having trouble finding a parenting approach that's based in trauma research, that's based in rejecting the notion of authority in parenting. And so then when I found Rythea on TikTok, that just put words to my thoughts and feelings about how I wanted to show up. And so here we are, you know, I reached out to her, and then we felt that this is the thing. Our clinical work and our personal work is an enmeshment of ideas. Then we created this show. And so Rythea has so much prior works that, you know, you'll be interested to hear about it when she talks about herself. And I've only written one little thing. I do have a reparenting journal that I've created that's available for parents. But most of the work that I've done in non-coercion is in my clinical practice with parents, and helping parents figuring out how folks can navigate these challenges with their kids in a collaborative, non-coercive way that's supportive to everybody getting their needs met, but with respect and the relationship at the center.
Great, Cara. Let's see. I have an 11-year-old daughter who was born, you know, full of power. Like, she is a powerhouse. She is so alive. She's so creative. She's wild. She's my teacher. I am divorced since she was 2.5, and that was a huge trauma for all of us. And so a lot of my non-coercive tools came in to help her heal those traumas. And now me and her live with my partner of 8 years, Will. And we're a very loving, playful, problem-solving, negotiating household, which you'll learn more about. So I have 2 co-parents. I feel very lucky. And let's see. So what happened for me really quickly is that I just, you know, dabbled in TikToks. Not much happened. I made a couple of parenting TikToks, thought it was kind of cool and interesting. And then I went out to dinner with some friends, and this person said to me, "Hey, I've been watching your parenting TikToks, and then you stopped. Like, what's going on? They were really changing my life. Can you please make more?" And I was like, "Oh, really?" I was like completely shocked. So I went home after the dinner, and I went on a walk, and I filmed myself talking about the heart of what I believe in. And that video went viral. So now 1 million people have watched it. And it's when you go viral, like, you just get all these followers. And then all of a sudden I had a platform. So I started making videos every single day. And that's because I've been a performer, a performing artist my whole adult life. Well, and even when I was a teenager, I love performing. It is so fun for me. I'm always challenging myself and channeling really provocative topics. I've always been doing that because I am a trauma survivor. I'm a trauma survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I've been healing that for as long as I can remember. And it is really, really hard. And so I often make one-woman shows about the healing process and what it's like. And I write music and songs and books. Like, I'm just kind of exploding. I have been for a really long time. And so I have a lot to say. I am a therapist, a trauma therapist for 28 years. I work mostly with survivors, and I do a lot of childhood work with people and inner child parts work, which I really love. And I can tell you confidently that people heal. People really, really do heal. That's why I love my job. I help people organize the healing process. and figure out how to know what parts are doing what and how to have a loving adult and how to connect to spirit. And it really works. It really works. So I've healed so much trauma. My clients have healed so much trauma. And then our kids come along and they just provoke our deepest, deepest wounds. That's what they do. And that's somehow, for some stupid reason, how it's designed. That's how human life is designed, that our kids come and they bring up our deepest unresolved issues, and we can either push against it and control them, or we can open. So I made this online show while my daughter was growing up. I think I started it while she was 3. It's called Advice from a Loving Bitch. It's on YouTube. It's a 20 episode curriculum helping people heal patterns of self-hatred. And each episode is about 10 minutes long and is on a different theme. And it explains healing the inner child and externalizing the self-hating voice. And I really can see that whole series, which is free and available to anyone, has prepared me for where I am right now. Like, it really taught me how to synthesize and also use humor to help people wake up. I feel like my work is like, it's like tricks people through laughing and being absurd to open, and then they learn. And I love doing that. And I do it because I'm also like, TikTok has changed my life. Like, being able to articulate what I'm doing with my daughter and what I believe in systemically is changing my life.
It's so amazing. And my bio in comparison, I'm like, this is brilliant. Your bio is incredible. Would you talk about your partner a little bit?
Yes. Great. Thank you for asking me that. So Will is my partner. And I would say that I don't know how long we were together. We got together when Tori was like 3.5. My daughter is Tori. And then we were together for a while, and I was probably a gentle parent, like a somewhat coercive. I really understood feelings. I really understand that my daughter needed to have feelings and I needed to play with her. I'm really good at playing with kids. I love kids. But I also believe that I should just tell her what to do and make limits for her all the time. So I was, she didn't let her eat sugar, and she wasn't on screens. And, I limited everything. I was controlling everything all the time. And then I guess I'm getting into my non-coercive story. Should I? Well, anyway, let me get back to Will for a second. I met this love of my life, and I decided at some point while we were still together that I was going full on non-coercive. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just let her eat whatever she wants. I'm going to start like following her lead. I'm going to negotiate with her. I just started changing the whole thing. And he was very shocked and very confused. And it was a long journey. I mean, his parents are his whole lineage is teachers. And he never heard of this. And, and so it was a lot. It was a lot in the beginning. And then slowly watching how incredibly effective it is for closeness and for creating a family environment of real communication. And he and Tori got closer and closer and closer the more that we all embraced this lifestyle. And now I would say we're fully on board. He's fully on board. And in a lot of ways, he leads huge areas of our family learning. So now it's not like I'm pulling him along. Now it's like he's like taking charge. There's a lot of times where I'm so triggered I can't see straight, and he has to step in and be like, you're really triggered right now. And then my daughter's like, yeah, you are. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go take a break. And he takes over. So he helps me sort of hold the line.
Yeah, I love that you talked about the partnership, because we have the same thing in our house. And because I'm also in that space of like noticing feelings and doing all of the feelings stuff, it's like very difficult for me when I'm triggered to get out of that. Like, I'm into the feelings place and I'm trying to express like myself. And even with my 1-year-old, there's not a lot of conversation between myself and my 1-year-old if I'm feeling triggered, because I'm obviously trying to step into self-regulation. But my husband does the same thing. He's really good at stepping outside of the, okay, like, yeah, I'm an outsider, but I'm also aware that like this is you engaging with her while you're triggered is not supportive. So he is able to step in and get me out, do whatever he needs to do to kind of help me leave or step out for a second to regulate. And then he's able to step in and support her in the way that is supportive. And I think that like that is so beautiful when a lot of us, we come from families, me, myself, that wasn't always an option. Like, it was like parents were a united front, I think. And a lot of parents believe they should be. And actually what you said about Will and my husband Sanjay, like, he's kind of there to not support me when I am triggered and not engaging in the way that I know I need to be a non-coercive collaborative parent. And he's actually breaking down that idea that we need to be a united front in the best way.
Yeah, because united front means child is alone. Child has no ally.
Absolutely.
Child has to hold reality all by themselves, and their little brain has no idea how to make sense of it. It's terrible. It's really damaging and scary. I think so much of my healing is about gaslighting. Like, nothing made sense. And so much of my healing has been having to learn how to validate myself and believe myself. And it's been years and years and years and years and years and years doing that. I mean, gosh, that's so unfair. I feel like so much of my creative performing work is also activism. So obviously I'm fighting oppression towards children. I'm working with adults and I'm fighting, abusive, patriarchal patterns. But I think it's also important to say, because I am your guide in this process, me and Cara are, but just that I'm constantly and consistently doing work around whiteness and racism and my place there with my privilege, and constantly putting my work in a context and knowing that I am absolutely not speaking for everyone, and learning about how to keep being called in and calling myself in, and inviting people in who can speak to the places that I can't. And that's so important for anyone who is being public and having an opinion. Like, we have to know where we fall short. We have to know where we are absolutely not speaking for people with different struggles. So I just wanted to say that.
By nature of the intention of this work, we have to include other folks, other voices, and we have to be activists. We have to actively refute what the messaging is. Universally, I think, which is control.
Well, also it will force you to become, if you are interested in this lifestyle, it forces you to do your work around systemic oppression. I mean, I think it does, because it's not just about what we're doing with our kids. It's about how our kids fit into the whole system and how we fit into the whole system. Hopefully you'll see yourself that way. And this, it's very provocative that way.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions for each other that we're going to ask, and we have not heard the questions before, so we kind of wanted it to be a surprise. I will go first, Rythea. Is that okay? My first question to you is, can you share one of your favorite memories or moments that you shared with your daughter that you feel emerged entirely because of this approach that you've taken in non-coercion?
Wow. I mean, it's hard. I'm with my daughter all the time. She's homeschooled and we're around each other a lot. And last night, I think she was up till 2 a.m. because she had Starbucks at like 7:00. Okay. And so she couldn't fall asleep. And she likes me to lie there to help her fall asleep. And then I leave. But she couldn't fall asleep. And so she was wanting to talk about everything. I mean, everything that she could think of in her life, things that at some point, Cara, she's like, Mom, in the world, like everything that's happening in the world, and we're supposed to just go on like none of this is happening? And I said, like what? And she's like global warming, and she brought up all these like major like planet issues. She like named them off. I can't even tell you what they were. She was talking about poverty and starvation and the weather. And she was on top of it. I was like, I really, really hear you, honey. I know it seems crazy that we're all just going on, right? And this is happening. And she was like, yeah, and we're kids and we're growing up in this. And, my kid is 11. She's so freaking deep. She's so deep. and she's tapped into like the planet and what's happening. And I feel like non-coercion is the reason that she shares with me like this. I know that it is. Yeah. I know that it is. And then at some point, I was like, sweetie, I have this really big day tomorrow. I really need to go to sleep because I'm doing this podcast. And she kept being like, Mom, I'm so sorry that I'm keeping you up. And then right before I went to sleep, she goes, Mom, you are sweet and loving and funny.
That is...
Oh, no, fun. You are sweet and loving and fun. I was like, sweetheart, that is the sweetest thing you've ever said to me. And she hugged me like a million times. And this is because she doesn't feel controlled by me at this point. I mean, it's been a long journey, but now that she feels that I truly respect who she is, she just opens like a flower. It's the best thing ever. I can say this is the best time of parenting I've had.
Wow.
This last year.
Wow.
Hands down. It's like all the things that I was told would happen if I let go of controlling her have come to be.
Yeah, it's emotional for me to hear that because it reminds me of how clients will feel when they share with their therapist, right? If we're supposed to be, and we aim to be as therapists, creating this really just trusting therapeutic relationship that is allowing of people to be whoever they are. And that is what you're doing with your daughter.
That's so funny, right? She said to me, Mom, you're a good therapist.
Yeah.
She said that to me. And she was talking because she thought I was doing a really good job listening to her.
It's beautiful, though. It's like, that's what everybody probably wants. I mean, I feel like most people want that, right? They want that closeness in some capacity.
Well, this is why we pay people to be our therapists.
Exactly. Exactly. And I guess like your answer is so beautiful, and it's like we have another episode coming about what the promises of non-coercion will be, right? What it actually can give you, but that's a big one, is unconditional closeness. It's safety, and that is such a great example. Like those words that she chose to describe you, like it's just really, it's like she really sees you.
Yeah.
She really sees you, and she doesn't just love you because you're her mom. It's beautiful.
I got to tell you about her seeing me is most people have this really major false belief that if you quote unquote let your child do what they want, or whatever they want, they will become entitled, spoiled, selfish children. And it is the exact opposite. All right, you ready for your question?
I'm ready.
Okay, what do you think is your personal biggest obstacle to being a non-coercive parent? What is the thing that gets in the way the most?
It's this feeling that I have of judgment. So here's my thing, because I know in non-coercion, it can feel like, is this even going to work? What happens if my kid hates me? Like what, is my kid going to end up spoiled, entitled, all that? I don't actually think that that's going to happen. Like I actually really trust non-coercion. So I think that it's going to be however my kid is, I'm okay with that, is essentially what I'm trying to say. My fear though, my obstacle to doing it is the judgment from other people. I am very acutely aware of how I feel I'm perceived. Like I think perhaps it's also a huge part of my self-hating voice, right? It's showing up in public. So that self-hating voice, my inner critic, is saying, oh my God, the people in the grocery store are looking at you because you're not telling your kid to be quiet. Oh my God, your friends are going to think you're a shitty parent because you let her do whatever she wants, or whatever, or you're not getting your kid in line. And it's like, that is my inner critic. It's almost like my inner critic maybe is worried all the time that other people are going to think I'm a shitty parent. And my biggest, I think, challenge with parenting in general is that I actually would really love it if everybody thought I was a great parent. It's just wanting approval. It's wanting folks to look at my parenting and say, she's doing a great job. It's wanting the validation and the acceptance. And my biggest obstacle to doing non-coercion is that I am actually not controlling my kid ever. So when things happen that are challenging, like out in public and other people can see, it's difficult for me to show up in the way that I know that I want to, non-coercively.
It's funny, you know, I do these parenting mentor calls, and I was just talking with someone yesterday who said that her kid kind of yelled or like said, "Get away from me," to these two younger kids. And then the other parent came over and said, "My kids are feeling really hurt." And she knew that the parent wanted her to make her kids say, "I'm sorry."
Mm-hmm.
It was like, well, I didn't know what to do, so I did. I started to say, "Why don't you say you're sorry? You should say you're sorry." And then my kid was like, "Nope, I'm not saying I'm sorry." And so she was asking me about that, and I was helping her see, no, he doesn't have to say he's sorry if that's not how he's feeling. And you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry that happened." Model that for him. And, you know, it's a much bigger, longer discussion about non-coercion, but it was more, when we broke it down, it was more about what this mother over there would think of than her actual child.
That is it. And I just want to I don't know if Rythea, you ever feel that way?
Oh my God, Cara, are you kidding?
Okay, good. Because I almost am maybe Rythea never feels that way.
Oh my God, I have to say I have PTSD. I don't know, now I'm like, why did I bring my child to so many parties? Like, what was wrong? I was just desperate for love and connection, so I kept bringing my child, and it was just like, you know, a lot of her being very rude to me in front of other people, and a lot of people judging me for years and years. And one time I had a friend actually lose her shit and say, your child is so difficult to be around. It broke me.
No,
broke me.
That is awful. That's exactly what it is for me. For the answer to your question about what's the obstacle, it's that I'm in that moment of judgment. I'm feeling the judgment. I notice it. I am pushing against actively the instinct to lean into whatever the judgment is pushing me to do, right? So for instance, I'm at the grocery store. My kid is really very loud, is trying to get things off the shelves and big mover energy. She's a toddler. That's toddlerhood for you. But I'm getting looks from other parents, and I'm in my head, I'm going, they want me to tell her to be quiet. They want me to tell her to shush. I should tell her to be quiet. I should tell her to shush. That's what other parents do. Yeah. And I'm pushing against the urge to do that. So it's very exhausting for me because I feel like it is always there, that judgment or that perceived judgment. Maybe they're not judging me. I'm not a mind reader, but the perceived judgment is there. The instinct to then go with the coercion and go with the controlling and do the authoritative response is there. And I have to then say, no, you're a non-coercive parent. We don't do that. We let her be who she is. That's what you want. That's how you want to show up. And I have to have this dialogue for every time I experience this, and it's really exhausting. And that is my biggest obstacle, because sometimes I do the coercion because I'm unable to, because I'm exhausted or whatever, or I'm really triggered. But it's not really an obstacle. I think it's just being a human being. So it's part of the process.
Well, also, Cara, it has to do with the fact that parents have no support, and we're all in our little houses, and it's unnatural, and we don't have our communities. You know, we are parenting in isolation with no support, and then parents get judged. It's insane. It's our system. It's not just human. It's the way that we're living.
Yeah, you're right, actually. No, I think that is it. It's not the way that I innately think. I think you're right. It is actually the judgment, the perceived judgment, all of those voices. That's messaging, yeah.
Yeah, because also you want to belong, and you want people to support you. And I'm sure people are listening and like, oh no, are you telling me you have rude children? Rudeness is like the big thing, like the fulcrum for all the authoritarian behavior on earth. That is what made my TikTok go viral, as I was talking about rudeness. Oh my God, that's what it was. That's like the nerve.
Okay, here we go. What is something you're wanting to learn more about in this work? Like, what is something that you may still be struggling with and you feel like you need more perspectives on?
Good. You know, so I didn't get to say this yet. I've been really wanting to say that the whole reason I do non-coercive parenting is because of this incredible person named Vivek Patel at meaningfulideas.com. That's his website. So I started watching his videos 2 years before I decided to go non-coercive. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then one day my daughter started sneaking candy into the bathroom, and I caught her. She was 5. And I had been already watching his videos, and my mind was like, oh no, like she's already starting to hide things from me, and she's 5. Like something's very, very wrong. Mm-hmm. And I sort of looked down into the future, and see that it was just going to have to be more and more and more control.
Yeah.
I was going to be going the way that I was going. And I was like, that just sounds like hell on earth, you know? And I decided to like fully embrace his work and his approach and his mindset. I love that word, mindset. And I don't really remember how it happened, but he ended up being part of my life. And we are now really, really, really good friends. I'm trying to think, how did that happen? It's kind of like you and me. I like reached through the internet and I like, hey, and I told him I'm going full on with this. And I think he had never met anybody at that point who was like willing to fully do it.
Oh,
like,
that's cool.
Yeah, he said he talked to lots and lots of parents who wanted to do it a little, you know?
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's cool, Rythea.
I was the first person who said, I'm going full on. I'm not going to control her eating. I'm not going to control her screens. I'm not going to control her bedtime. I'm not going to control what words she used. I'm not going to, you know, I was like, I'm going for it, you know? And then of course it was, so, you know, when you first decide to stop controlling a child that you've been controlling, it is like an explosion because they start just being like, really? And they just want to test every edge that you have taken off. They're like, oh, you're not going to control this? Well, then I'm going to stay up all night and I'm going to eat all the sugar all day long. And then I'm going to watch screens until my brain falls out. You know, like they just start testing all the boundaries. And that's what happened. And I was like terrified. I felt like I was losing my mind. And Vivek started letting me call him regularly and coaching me and text with him. And he talked me through it for 2 years. That
is so amazing.
And then he came to visit me.
Oh, I didn't know that either. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Well, I know about him obviously now through you. And he's like this amazing sage. He's just got this incredible knowledge and wisdom.
Well, he can do, his daughter is 26.
Yeah.
So he did it from the day she was born. So it's 26 years of non-coercion, right?
So
my
amazing.
point is, I just sent him a message like 2 days ago. And I said, can you say stuff about boundaries? Because that's what parents say. Like whenever I talk about non-coercion on TikTok, everyone goes, well, you need to have boundaries. Well, what about boundaries? And everyone says everything about boundaries. And so he sent me a whole voice message about boundaries that blew my mind. And he was saying that, you know, parents use the idea of boundaries to control their children, of course. And he said, well, he says in it, he says to parents, why don't you set a limit that your child doesn't want you to set? And then when they're crying, ask them if they feel safe. He was saying that people would say, oh, we need boundaries, that children are crying out for boundaries and that they want boundaries in order to feel safe. That's what everyone says.
Everyone says it.
And he said, yeah, so make an arbitrary boundary for your kid, and then while they're crying, ask them if they feel safe.
Yeah.
And he said, no, they won't feel safe because they feel controlled and they don't feel seen and they don't have a voice and they don't have a choice. And, you know, basically it's hurtful. Anyway, I'm going to send it to you, Cara. It's amazing. But I still feel like I need to understand how to break that down, to explain why control is not boundaries and why boundaries is not, it doesn't give you a free pass to do whatever the fuck you want. I mean, bedtime is like, let's use bedtime as an example. People say, no, I have to get my kid to bed by 8 because they have to get up and go to school and blah, blah, blah. And that's boundaries. And you need that because otherwise my child will fail at school and go to school exhausted. And, you know, people have these huge reasons why they tell you that their kid has to do it that way. And I want to be able to speak to that. I want to get better at being able to say, you know, like brainstorm with them why just laying down the law. Because I always say, well, have you asked your child what they want?
Exactly. Have you been able to collaborate on a solution to this need being met, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Because that's it, right? It's struggling with this. Everybody would agree, right? That parents struggling with the fact that they have needs and we have needs. And then everybody assumes, like me and you have talked about this so many times, everybody assumes that I'm the parent, so it's my way or the highway. And it's like, no, it fucking isn't, right? It's like you literally can collaborate with your child. I do it all the time. My kid is 14 months old.
An example of how you collaborate with her?
For example, diaper changes for a 14-month-old. She's also like, she uses the potty as well. But of course, going to the potty or doing any sort of transition, okay? So like they don't want to get their diaper changed because they're involved in play or they're involved in, you know, a moment that is theirs. And so leaving that time to go do something that is for me, which is a need, I want to change your butt because I don't want you to get a rash. The child's not interested in that. And so obviously all parents of young children, we all know at a certain point, children hate diaper changes. It's like a universal thing. So my daughter, same thing. I will not look at that as an urgency type of need, okay? I don't look at a diaper change as needing to happen immediately. Like as soon as I notice that it needs to be changed. I don't hold urgency culture as a reason to set a limit, but that's kind of my general approach. And so how I then do that is I navigate that situation with her instead of like making her do the thing because I feel it needs to be done. So I talk to her about it, and I've been doing this since she was like born. I mean, obviously, I guess until, well, she didn't hate diaper changes or, you know, object to much of anything really when she was an infant, but it happened pretty early on where she didn't want to get her diaper changed. So I would give her options, and I would ask her like, oh, do you want to listen to some music while we do it? Should we sing Muffin Man? Should we read a book? Should we like, let's play together? I would do a whole silly monster thing. I would make it fun. I would put the diaper on my head. Like I would get her involved in the process instead of like doing it to her. And I do that for everything that she objects to.
Oh,
and
Cara, I love what you're saying.
yeah, like I really believe in play and lightness in all aspects of my parenting. I really believe in like allowing her to feel and giving her the space to not want to do the thing. If it's not an emergency, then it doesn't need to be done, right? It doesn't need to be done in that moment. So like a diaper change or anything she objects to, if she's not wanting to go in the stroller, I wear her. If she doesn't want to ride her bike, she doesn't ride her bike. We play in the yard. Just if she doesn't want to leave the park right now, I ask her, do you want to go on swings? Do you want to do sandbox? Like, and she can tell me yes or no. I find a way to meet her need too, which is maybe being distracted during the diaper change or needing a snack before getting in the stroller or whatever it is. I just don't force her to do anything. I just really hold collaboration at the front of my mind. That's how I navigate things like limits or boundaries or whatever it is, expectations, like things I feel like if I notice that thing coming into my mind that's like, you need to do this, I actually get curious about that. Do I really though? Because that says something about why I'm triggered, and that gives me more insight to me and how I respond. So the stroller thing was very triggering. I'm sure we can talk about this on another episode, but her not wanting to be in the stroller for very long at times has been very hard for me because I feel like, well, we got to get to the place or we got to get things done, and all the other babies, they want to be in the stroller. Why isn't mine? Da 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 da. And I realized like that what a ridiculous approach to coerce her to get in the stroller. I could literally just wear her, or I don't have to go right now. I can wait and we can play a few minutes till she's ready.
I bet that there are a bazillion parents who, when they know their child has a poop or a pee in their diaper, feel intense amount of urgency to change it. I just have a sense that that's probably a huge trigger for parents.
I think it is. I've heard it before.
Cleanliness is such a trigger.
Yeah.
I did a whole TikTok on this about making kids clean up, and oh my god, I got so much engagement about people saying, yes, you have to make your child clean up, and them all telling me the reasons why, and being adamant about it and very defensive and very righteous. I think the whole thing about being clean, oh my God, just triggers people so deeply. And, this is one of those situations where this is why we call it conscious parenting, where the parent has to stop and look at what's going on for them. And it's very hard.
It's very hard and it's very slow. And that's another thing where it comes into, the perceived judgment, right? Because if I'm a child in the stroller that's screaming and I take them out, immediately then I go to perceived judgment. Everybody's looking at me. Everybody's saying I'm reinforcing the tantrum. And it's like I have to actively push against that and say, no, I'm not. No, you're not, Cara. You're responding to your kid. And I'm allowed to wear my kid. If I want to wear my kid, I'm allowed to. Sometimes I don't have the freaking carrier, so I hold her, which is annoying and hard for me physically. And it does, I have to work, like you said, it's work to lean into acceptance of that. Yeah, I feel maybe shame creeping in about like, oh, here I am. I'm going to be seen as that person who's giving into their kid all the time and I'm spoiling her. But I have to actively push against that and remind myself that it's okay. And the other day I did that. She didn't want to get in the bike that she has for leaving the park. So I held her and it was great because I was dropping her, into my arms, when you do the, oops, I'm going to drop you. Just kidding. Haha. And we had such a beautiful 10-minute walk home together because I was doing that. And she was belly laughing. And I wouldn't have had that moment if I forced her into the bike and took her body all rigid and shoved it in there and strapped her in and said, no, you're getting in, we have to go home. I wouldn't have had that beautiful moment of play and connection, and she wouldn't have kissed me all over my cheeks at that time, right?
Well, it's the same thing as last night. I mean, I could have said, look, I have a podcast tomorrow. I'm leaving you in your room and I'm going in my room and you can, just go to sleep when you're ready. I mean, there's so many ways I could have punished her for staying up till 2 a.m. But instead, she was telling me all of her thoughts about the world and telling me how much she loved me because I was willing to just open to it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade that for anything. And that's what makes it like a years-long practice, because you're right. You have to constantly talk to yourself and tell yourself it's okay. It's so deep and hard. So I want to ask you my next question. My daughter, Tori, I said I had to ask you 2 questions, and she said, oh, can I ask one of the questions? I said, sure. So her question for you is, what are you scared about? What's your fear about being a non-coercive parent? And maybe you already said it, but I don't know if there's any new aspect.
This is like hard to say, but my biggest fear is that I will like lose people in my life to this. I am really worried that people will hear this or they're going to see it in my parenting anyway, right? The close people, my people, my day-to-day people, my friends and my family members, right? I'm worried that they're going to like reject me because they don't agree with what I'm doing, and that they're going to talk about me behind my back, and that there's going to be like this toxicity that I sense or that is there and maybe I don't notice it. But that's my fear, right? Is like my fear comes in and says like, everybody's going to think that you're an idiot and you're actually going to end up like not just maybe losing people through this unspoken way, right? Like naturally sort of dissolving of relationships, but that you're going to actually get in conflict with people, that you're going to end up having to argue with them, that you're going to end up having to like fight for this and get in all these arguments. And I don't want any of that, that's my fear, is that Tori is a genius for this question. Cause it is so scary.
Have you lost people?
No, because I think it's too early probably for anyone to really see it, right? Like obviously I'm doing this show and now people in my life might listen to it. But ultimately, as like a mom to a young baby, what's sort of accepted much more so than non-coercion, obviously, is attachment parenting, right? Responsive parenting. When they get into toddlerhood and they start having those, behaviors that society hates, non-conforming and big feelings and all of that, that's where I think it'll start to become really apparent that I am very different. And I don't think that's really shown up yet for most people. I think that I still kind of parent as like I look like, I know one person said to me, oh, wow, you're a nice mom. So I think people might look at me as like this nice, loving mom or whatever. I hope, at least. But I don't think I've lost anyone yet, because I don't think it's really become apparent, if that makes sense.
Yes. And you also might lose people.
I do think I will. I think that it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've lost people. I didn't lose people, but I definitely felt really judged for many, many years. And I would say there are some huge non-coercive fights that I get into stuff with my ex-husband. That's where we get really into our dynamic, where that things get hard. Yeah. And so, Vivek said that he lost lots of people in his life.
Wow.
Yeah. But I feel like, I don't know, it's 26 years later from when he started that. I like to think that things have really changed.
Yeah. And I think too that like talking about the fear actually provides me with a different perspective on it, that there's an ability to see that fear as self-protection, right? From sharing it. Like I feel like in that fear, yeah, sure, I can be worried that I might lose people, but also that if I lean into that and actually maybe invite the conversation and invite curiosity and wow, I might say to them, oh yeah, you're doing things really different than me. Hey, wow, interesting. Yeah, no, I do this. I can actually share it a little bit with people. I don't have to keep it so closed, but I just realized that now.
Good. That's great. That's why we're doing this. I just want to say now that my daughter's 11, I've told you this recently, but I am not really that affected by people's opinion anymore.
Right.
That is because she's grown into a sensitive, caring,
right,
empathetic.
Right. You've got like the evidence now, right?
No, I have the evidence. I didn't have it. I didn't have it for 5 years. She was hitting children. She was having tantrums, 3-hour tantrums. I mean, it was so intense. And no, I didn't have the evidence. I just had Vivek saying, you're doing great. And then, oh my God, sometimes we'd look at each other, me and my daughter would look in each other's eyes, and she would cry in my arms, and I would feel so connected, and I'd be like, this is right. I would feel our connection. I'd be like, this is right what I'm doing. She's open to me. This is absolutely working. And then we go back into the shit, get back into the daily grind, back into the hating on myself.
Yeah.
So now, it's cool that you and I are in different phases. I think it's kind of perfect.
I do too, because it acts as like a sounding board for, well, I know for me, because I can kind of look at you as this like, okay, you've been there, right? And I can like say things like, here's my fear. And you can kind of come back to, oh, I was there too. And look now where I am. And I don't know where my relationship is going to go with my kid. And that's the point. It's just so helpful to, hopefully for our listeners too, to have like people in different stages of this, still doing the work and still having the daily grind, but having different experiences daily too.
Yes, and for people listening, it's okay if you're nowhere near this. I mean, I listened to Vivek's podcast for 2 years before I decided it was anything I wanted to open. So like, it's okay just to mentally start to understand what's possible.
Yeah, I love that you said that. That like brings a big smile to my face, because absolutely, like you don't have to jump all in, right? You don't have to do what, like you said, Rythea, you did, which is like, I'm dropping I'm dropping the rope on all the things, People don't have to do that. Don't have to do that at all. It's literally just like, join us in this conversation. And let's see.
Well, people ask me on TikTok, but what do I do when my kid has to go to school? What do I do when we have to get to a doctor's appointment? What do I do when my kid stops brushing their teeth? And I have some ideas about all of them.
Right.
But really, it's not about a formula, and it's not about even a strategy. It's about an intention to see your child as a whole human being with a huge amount of feelings and impulses and desires that are equally of value to yours. That, if you just start there, that will make a huge difference.
A world of difference, I think. Yeah. Wow. This has been Your Kids Don't Suck. You can find me, Cara Tedstone, at www.caratedstoneTherapy.com. and on Instagram at Cara Tedstone Therapy. On my website, you'll find links to recommended readings and a link to my Reparenting with Mindfulness workbook, available now on Amazon.
You can find me, Rythea Lee, at www.rythea.com. That's RYTHEA.com. There you'll find published books, articles, and music, and parenting videos. Also, I'm on TikTok at Rythea Lee, on Instagram at Rythea Lee. You can book parent mentoring sessions with me through my website. And also I have an Advice from a Loving Bitch YouTube show that helps people heal self-hatred, and that's rythea.com/advice. It is important and essential to put our voices, Rythea and Cara, in a context. We are two white, cisgendered, straight, middle-class women living with financial and societal privilege. Because of this, our perspectives are limited and do not reflect the realities of all of our listeners. This podcast will feature guests with expertise around conscious parenting who differ in race, class, abilities, sexual orientation, and histories from us, to broaden the conversation and reflect the lives of as many people as possible. 25% of the proceeds of this podcast will go to creators of color who have been mentors and influences on our work and in our growth as parents.
If you like our show, please subscribe and stay tuned for more conscious parenting advice and insights. And check out our link tree at linktr.ee/yourkidsdon'tsuck to donate and connect with us.